Hello everyone, welcome to another short video. In this video, we are going to look at user ID on Palo Alto Firewall. So, in this video, we are going to provide our firewall the visibility of users. Okay, so till now, our firewall knew about IP addresses. Now it needs to know what IP address belong to which user. And there are two ways to do it. One way is you can install an agent on the servers, and then that can feed the information to the firewall. In our lab, we are going to use Palo Alto as based agent itself. So there will be no agent installed on the servers. Palo Alto will be fetching the required logs from the servers in order to achieve that mapping. What user ID is uh, attached to what IP address. Let's jump onto the firewall. So in order to configure the user ID, we have to go to device and then user identification. As I said, I'm gonna use Palo Alto Network's user ID agent setup. So that is set it up here under the user mapping in the first tab. I have already set it up because there was a lot of configuration, but we are gonna talk about all the configuration we need to do. You click on edit here, and then first tab you see server monitor account. First of all, we need to set up account, okay, on the server that has access to relevant logs, and then we need to provide that user ID and password here. Okay, this user ID and password will be used by Palo Alto in order to fetch the required logs from the monitored servers. Next tab is server monitor. You can enable security log. Server monitor frequency, it's 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds, it's going to go to server and fetch the logs. Client probing, if you want to enable the client probing. Cache, for how much time your Palo Alto should cache the information related to user IDs. And then if you have any devices which are sending syslogs to the Palo Alto in order to determine the what user IDs are logged into what IP addresses, then these are the filters that needs to be used. And ignore user list. Yeah, this is a user list which you would like your Palo Alto firewall to ignore. Basically do not care about the mapping for this user ID. And other than that, once you have set it up this section, then you will be setting up server monitoring. In server monitoring, you can see I've set it up one Active Directory server, Microsoft Active Directory IP address, and its status is connected. I'll click on LDAP. You see LDAP. It's type Microsoft Active Directory. It's enabled. I'm using WMI protocol, and then this is the IP address of that server. Once you commit the configuration after doing this configuration, this status should go connected. If it's not connected, there is a problem. You need to figure out and fix it. If your credentials are correct or not, your user ID is correct or not, always check those basic things. Now, after you do this, but in the policies, you will always be using the groups. User groups are called in the policies. So I have added an LDAP server in here in the server profiles. You can see this is my LDAP server, which has been added with all these settings. We also saw it when we were looking at the server profiles. It's the same server. Now you go under the user identification and in the group mapping settings. Under the group mapping, you see I have created a group mapping named as internet underscore access. And this mapping uses the server profile, LDAP server. And then what groups are being fetched from that server? The groups are fetched as Shivam's backslash internet access. This group I'm importing from the server. Whatever users are part of the group, my firewall will know about them. Okay. And after doing this setting, there are two more things you need to set up. One thing is on what zone you want your Palo Alto to, recognize the user ID and the IP address mappings. So I'm going to recognize at the LAN zone. You can see I have enabled the user identification ACL checkbox. Enable user identification. This is required. Otherwise, your Palo Alto won't work with the user IDs properly for that specific zone. Now, whatever IP addresses you want to include, you can put them here. If you have specific IP addresses you want to exclude from user identification, put them here, and then you save your configuration. Now, after that, you have to use this in the policies. So let's go to the policies section. I'll show you. I already have a policy. You can see internet access for LAN devices, user ID demo, and see my rule says LAN zone, and this should be the user ID. The user ID should be part of this group, and then it's allowed to access to any destination, but only for these applications. Now let's go to the monitor tab. Let's look at the traffic. I'm just going to remove this stuff. And now I'm going to log into this Windows machine using a user ID. Just 1 second. Okay, so it has initiated the disk check. Guys, give me a minute. I'll pause the video. I'll disable its disk check, log into the machine, and then I'll share my screen again. Okay, this time I have now canceled the disk check while the server, while the PC reboots. I'll show you something on the Windows server. This is my Windows server where I have installed the Active Directory. Let me log into it quickly. So there are really no settings other than creating the user account with, specific privileges on the server. I have done no other settings required if you use a Palo Alto network basis. So you can see there are two users. One is Alto, one is Polo, and there is the Internet Access group. If you see, Alto is the part of this group, but the Palo is not the part of this group. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. Now let's minimize this window. Let's log into our Windows machine. I have the Palo user there. Okay, the Palo is now logged in. Okay, Palo is now authenticated successfully. Now, while this machine has come up, let's generate some logs. That would be great, I believe. So we can see in the traffic logs how we really see the information in there. Okay, let me access port quiz. Let me access Google Chrome web. Okay, give me a minute. Let me have a quick look, and then I'll be back. Okay, guys. So I got a hiccup. My login was successful, but my Palo Alto could not see the user ID, so I had to make some adjustment. Actually, my AD server lost a manual root entry in its table after the reboot. I had inserted that. I needed that entry because of my topology. In the production environment, you will never need them until unless you have a very, very, very specific need. Okay, now I am logged in as Alto. You can see Alto is my user ID. And on Palo Alto, there is a command to figure out the user ID. I'll bring it in front of you. You can see show user IP user mapping all. You can see 10004 AD Shivam slash Alto. Alto is the user, so my Palo Alto knows about it. Let's generate some traffic. Port quiz working. Chrome Web Store working. Both are working. Now let's see what changes in the traffic logs. I'm under the traffic logs now, and you can see now with this source IP address, my Palo Alto is associated in user ID. Okay, you can clearly see it's now saying Shivam slash Alto. So I know the Alto is the user which is coming in, it's setting that policy, and then it's going out. Let me just quickly open it. Yep, you see, it's going to United States as the user, and that's it. Alto is the user. That was about the user IDs and my firewall. Now let's try to log in as another user and see if our Palo Alto learns about it. I'll go there. I'll close the browser. I'll log off as the Alto user, and I'll now log in as the Palo user. Once again, each user. I want to log in as Palo user, and here's Palo's password. Okay, so I'm now logged in as Palo user. So yeah, you can see what it has popped up Palo, so it's now Palo user. Now let's go on to our Palo Alto and run the same program again. The same command again, and my Palo Alto has updated the mapping to Shivam slash Palo user. So that's how you utilize the Palo Alto, basically user ID on Palo Alto firewall. And you can then use it to view in the logs. That gives you more visibility into the traffic because your Palo Alto now knows which user based on the information given to it or fetched from the required servers or sent by the agents installed from the other servers to your Palo Alto firewall. Other than that, yeah, you should have a server profile created here in order to fetch the required group, so you can call it under the policy. And I recommend, on the DNS traffic, do not add any users because when DNS happens, usually there are new users logged in, and the very first DNS requests happen if they are needed. And yeah, after that, it works fine. So you can apply all the traffic as per the, user access to that. Basically, user-based rules. You see, as I have applied here. But on DNS traffic, do not do it, or maybe any other authentication traffic you need, like Active Directory traffic is also passing through the firewall because that's itself needed for authentication. If you do not authenticate, then there will be a problem. Usually, when the first traffic flows, Palo Alto will see if it has learned about user ID or not, and then apply the required policy based on IPs only. Okay, then that's it about this video. Have a good day. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in comments.